guys, it's Josephine Olivia Gross here. Today I'll be reading Zora Neale Hurston, Alma Woodsey Thomas, Alice Ball, and Bessie Coleman. From Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston, writer, folklorist, anthropologist. Zora's unique upbringing led her down a path of storytelling and creativity. She was raised in Eatonville, a historic town in northern Florida. Eatonville was special because in 1886 it became the first self-governed all-black city in America. It was an idyllic, nurturing environment that fostered an extreme sense of pride in its culture and traditions. As a young woman, Zora had a number of jobs and saved up enough money to enroll at Howard University in 1918. There she published her first story. By 1925, Zora had won awards for writing and had caught the attention of prominent black authors living in Harlem. That year, she moved to New York and continued her studies, becoming the first black graduate of the all-women's Barnard College. She worked alongside famous creatives including Langston Hughes, Countee Cullen, and Allan Locke, who were involved in the black artistic movement known as the Harlem Renaissance. They were called the New Negroes. Zora was celebrated as a writer who personified the movement and was given the nickname Queen of the Renaissance. Zora recognized the need to record African American stories, and she celebrated them long before others realized how important they would be. Her famous works include her masterpiece, Their Eyes Were Watching God, a novel inspired by her Eatonville past, In Mules and Men, a collection of stories from North Florida. She tracked and recorded the tales that built up the rich culture of the African American South. Tell My Horse was the result of years of research and study of folklore and religion in Jamaica and Haiti. Upon her passing, the famous writer Alice Walker called her a genius of the South. Alma Woodsey Thomas, teacher, painter. Born in Columbus, Georgia, Alma grew up in a home surrounded by lush landscapes and beautiful plants. In her youth, Alma showed promise in architecture, but was truly in love with art. She said that when she walked into her first art classroom in high school, it felt like entering heaven. She enjoyed working with children and pursued a career as a nursery school teacher. She taught art for several years before attending Howard University. She was the first student in Howard's brand new art department, whose founder encouraged her to paint full-time. Upon graduation, though she returned to her first love, education, she devoted her life to children, teaching at Shaw Junior High School for 36 years. She continued painting and pursued her master's degree in art education at Columbia University in New York City during her summers off. She is most often associated with the group of artists belonging to the color field movement, painters who worked only with large shapes or fields of color to express themselves. When she retired from teaching in 1960, Alma concentrated on painting full-time. She had a big art show at Howard University, for which she produced something totally different from anything she had done before. Inspired by nature, she created paintings with tiny bright rectangles and repeating shapes. It became her signature style. In 1972, when she was 80 years old, Alma's paintings were exhibited at the Whitney Museum of American Art. This was the first ever solo exhibition of an African American woman artist at one of America's most important art museums. Alma showed the importance of being dedicated to the thing you love and having the patience to let it grow. Alice Ball, chemist, medical researcher. Alice's mother and grandfather were both photographers, and as a child she became interested in the chemicals used in photography. She went to college in her hometown of Seattle and earned not 1 but 2 degrees in pharmaceutical chemistry and pharmacy. What an accomplishment for a young woman! At the time, most of the African American population in the city was employed in service professions, cleaning homes or preparing food, for example. But Alice defied expectations and her circumstances by seeking an education and a career in science. In 1915, Alice became the first woman and the first African American to graduate with a master's degree from the University of Hawaii. While working on her thesis, she developed what would become the leading treatment for leprosy, a serious incurable disease. She found a way for oil from the seed of the shalmungra tree to be absorbed into the bloodstream. This treatment became the primary method that would be used until the 1940s, but for a long time no one knew that Alice was the inventor. Less than 2 years after this discovery, Alice died, and the director of her program took credit for her findings. Alice's method became known as the Dean method. It wasn't until the 1970s that historians unearthed the truth and worked to ensure that Alice got credit for her important discovery. On 29 February 2000, the University of Hawaii recognized her for her work and put up a plaque for her on the only shalmungra tree on the school's campus. That day, the Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii declared 29 February Alice Ball Day. Bessie Coleman, pilot. Bessie grew up in a small segregated town in Texas. At home with 3 younger siblings around, she had a lot of responsibilities. Washing clothes by hand, fetching clean water, on top of walking 4 miles to school and back every day. Bessie knew that one day she would leave her small town. In 1915, she moved to Chicago to live with her older brothers. Returning from the First World War, they told her all about being in France and about how the women there could fly planes, unlike the women in America. This got Bessie curious, furiously curious. She applied to every flying school she could find, but was denied entry. No one at any of these schools thought a girl could fly, especially not a black girl. Bessie wanted to prove them wrong. In 1920, she moved to France, where she could finally learn to fly. She was so gifted, she graduated from the 10-month course in only 7 months. So in 1921, Bessie became the first African-American woman in the world to receive her pilot's license. She specialized in stunt flying, parachuting, and aerial tricks. After returning home to the United States, Bessie flew for huge crowds. She was very popular among both white and black Americans and stood up against segregation and discrimination whenever she could. She hoped to open up her own flying school for other girls of color. Unfortunately, during a test flight in 1926, a mechanical issue caused her plane to crash. Bessie passed away, but her legacy lives on. In 1977, the Bessie Coleman Aviators Club opened in Chicago to help women of all races fulfill their dreams of flying. Thank you for listening, and next Tuesday I'll be reading Augusta Savage, Josephine Baker, Mahalia Jackson, and Rosa Parks from Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Harrison. Have a great day and see you next week.